he thought she was invisible. Just another cleaning lady on her knees, polishing marble floors beneath a chandelier worth more than her entire life savings. With one arrogant kick, Khalil al-Mansuri, the 24-year-old heir to an $800 million oil empire, believed he was reminding the world who held the power. What he didn't realize was that his cruelty was about to ignite a chain reaction that would destroy everything his family had built over 3 generations. Because the woman he tried to humiliate wasn't just a hotel maid. She carried secrets, connections, and a quiet strength that would drag Khalil out of his palace of privilege and force him to face a kind of justice money could never buy. And the man who would come to her defense? A figure so powerful that Khalil's fortune, his empire, even his very name would crumble in comparison. This isn't just a story about wealth and arrogance. It's about what happens when karma wears a uniform, when power collides with justice, and when the spoiled heir of an oil dynasty learns the most brutal lesson of his life: you can't kick down the humble without eventually facing the consequences. The Pinnacle Tower Hotel in Manhattan was more than a luxury landmark. It was a stage where billionaires paraded their wealth, where politicians whispered backroom deals, and where power dripped from the crystal chandeliers like honey. And in that glittering temple of privilege, Khalil al-Mansuri strutted as if he owned the place. At just 24, Khalil had never worked a day in his life. His father's oil conglomerate stretched across 5 countries, his trust fund ballooned with more money than most nations' GDPs, and his wardrobe looked like it had been pulled straight from Milan's runways. Every gesture, every smirk, every word he spoke carried the weight of entitlement. But beneath the marble floors and golden elevators of Pinnacle Tower, there was another world, one Khalil refused to see. Aaliyah Johnson, 6 months pregnant and widowed too young, scrubbed floors for $12 an hour. To her, every shift wasn't just work, it was survival. Each towel folded, each towel polished was a lifeline for the child growing inside her. So when Khalil's patent leather shoes clicked across the lobby that morning and he barked at her to get out of his way, the worlds of the untouchable and the unseen collided. His kick was meant to be casual, a cruel flick of annoyance. But when Aaliyah crumpled sideways, clutching her belly in silent fear, something far greater than marble echoed through that lobby. The heir of an empire had just crossed a line. And though he didn't know it yet, the fall of Khalil al-Mansuri had already begun. The Pinnacle Tower Hotel in Manhattan was more than a luxury landmark. It was a stage where billionaires paraded their wealth, where politicians whispered backroom deals, and where power dripped from the crystal chandeliers like honey. And in that glittering temple of privilege, Khalil al-Mansuri strutted as if he owned the place. At just 24, Khalil had never worked a day in his life. His father's oil conglomerate stretched across 5 countries, his trust fund ballooned with more money than most nations' GDPs, and his wardrobe looked like it had been pulled straight from Milan's runways. Every gesture, every smirk, every word he spoke carried the weight of entitlement. But beneath the marble floors and golden elevators of Pinnacle Tower, there was another world, one Khalil refused to see. Aaliyah Johnson, 6 months pregnant and widowed too young, scrubbed floors for $12 an hour. To her, every shift wasn't just work, it was survival. Each towel folded, each towel polished was a lifeline for the child growing inside her. So when Khalil's patent leather shoes clicked across the lobby that morning and he barked at her to get out of his way, the worlds of the untouchable and the unseen collided. His kick was meant to be casual, a cruel flick of annoyance. But when Aaliyah crumpled sideways, clutching her belly in silent fear, something far greater than marble echoed through that lobby. The heir of an empire had just crossed a line. And though he didn't know it yet, the fall of Khalil al-Mansuri had already begun. Marcus uploaded the clip that night with little expectation. Just a few seconds of shaky footage, Khalil's voice dripping with disdain, his designer shoe connecting with Aaliyah's side as she toppled over the towels. The caption was simple: "This is what power looks like at the Pinnacle Tower Hotel." Within hours, it spread like wildfire. Twitter threads dissected every frame. TikTok edits layered the video with dramatic music, hashtags multiplying by the minute. Instagram pages dedicated to exposing the rich blasted Khalil's name in bold letters, the heir who kicked a pregnant worker. By sunrise, the story had already crossed oceans. Influencers in London condemned him, activists in Dubai demanded accountability, and talk shows in New York were scrambling to book legal analysts. It wasn't just a scandal anymore, it was a symbol. Khalil wasn't a person to the public, he was a face, a sneer, a kick replayed millions of times, proof of how the wealthy trample the vulnerable. Meanwhile, Aaliyah lay in a hospital bed, clutching her belly, terrified for her child. She didn't want fame, she didn't want headlines, she wanted safety. But her face, captured pale and shaken in Marcus's video, became the centerpiece of a global outrage machine. For Khalil, it was the first time in his life that money couldn't delete a mistake. His lawyers threatened lawsuits, his PR team crafted apologies, but the internet wasn't listening. Every attempt to spin the story only poured gasoline on the flames. And as Khalil's empire of privilege began to tremble, one thing became painfully clear: the world was no longer playing by his rules. To the Al-Mansuri dynasty, reputation wasn't just vanity, it was currency. Their oil empire had been built on polished deals, quiet negotiations, and an iron grip on their public image. One viral video, no matter how damning, wasn't supposed to threaten that. At least, that's what Khalil's father believed. Sheikh Omar al-Mansuri wasn't just a billionaire. He was a kingmaker. His name opened doors in Washington, London, and Riyadh. And when he saw the video of his son splashed across international headlines, he didn't flinch in horror, he clenched his jaw in rage. Not at Khalil's cruelty, but at the audacity of the world to question his family. Within hours, crisis teams were mobilized. Hotel executives were pressured into silence. Influential voices were bribed to shift the narrative. Offers were whispered to Aaliyah's hospital room, blank checks to vanish, to disappear quietly, to forget the pain. But something unexpected happened. Aaliyah refused. With quiet strength, she told the lawyers circling her bed that no amount of money could erase what Khalil had done. The child in her womb mattered more than any hush payment. And behind her refusal was a tide of public support too massive to ignore. Strangers donated to her online fund. Activists rallied outside the hotel, demanding justice. Every silencing attempt only made her story louder. For the first time in decades, Sheikh Omar's usual playbook, intimidate, pay off, erase, wasn't working. His empire of wealth was colliding with a force money couldn't control, a global audience hungry for accountability. And yet, the Al-Mansuris weren't ready to surrender. If burying the scandal with money failed, they had darker tools at their disposal. When money failed, intimidation followed. It started subtly: strange calls to Aaliyah's hospital room with no one on the line, black cars idling near her apartment, strangers lingering too long outside her workplace. At first, she thought it was her imagination, paranoia fueled by stress. But Marcus Vega, the journalist who had recorded the video, recognized the pattern instantly. He'd seen it before. Whispers of surveillance, shadowy figures trailing whistleblowers, classic tactics used by the powerful when silence couldn't be bought. Marcus warned her, "They're trying to break you down before you speak up. But if you give in now, they win." Meanwhile, Khalil paraded on social media, posting glossy photos of yacht parties as if nothing had happened. His arrogance only inflamed public fury, but it was clear he wasn't acting alone. Every move was shielded by the family's network of enablers, lawyers, lobbyists, and operatives willing to bend rules in exchange for favors. One night, Aaliyah returned home to find her door slightly ajar. Nothing was stolen, but the message was clear: "We can reach you anytime." Instead of silencing her, the threats ignited something deeper. Aaliyah realized this wasn't just about her anymore, it was about every invisible worker crushed under the boots of the privileged. She agreed to Marcus's proposal, to go public, to tell her story on camera, and to show the world that she wouldn't be erased. But as the interview date approached, one question lingered like smoke in the air: how far would the Al-Mansuris go to protect their empire? The day of the interview arrived like a storm everyone saw coming. Aaliyah, pale but resolute, sat beneath the harsh lights of a small studio. Across from her, Marcus leaned forward, his recorder live, cameras rolling. Millions would soon watch this fragile but fearless woman tell the truth. Her voice didn't shake. She spoke of the long shifts, the loneliness of being widowed so young, and the child she carried as her only anchor. Then she described, in vivid detail, the moment Khalil's kick sent her sprawling across the hotel's marble floor. "I wasn't just kicked," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the lens. "I was reminded that people like me aren't seen as human to people like him. But I refuse to let my child grow up in a world where silence protects cruelty." When the interview aired, the internet exploded. Hashtags calling for Khalil's arrest trended in dozens of countries. Protesters gathered outside Pinnacle Tower with signs reading "Justice for Aaliyah" and "End the Billionaire Shield." Even celebrities and politicians, people who normally stayed quiet about such scandals, publicly condemned Khalil's actions. For the Al-Mansuri family, this was disaster. What they had dismissed as a minor inconvenience had grown into an international reckoning. Khalil's smug posts vanished overnight, replaced by silence. His father's lawyers scrambled, issuing hollow statements about misunderstandings and respect for all workers. But no one was buying it anymore. The breaking point had been reached. Aaliyah was no longer just a hotel maid. She was a symbol. And symbols are far more dangerous to the powerful than scandals. But if the family's empire was crumbling in the spotlight, there was still one move left in the shadows, a move that would change everything again. Cornered empires don't go quietly. When money and influence failed, the Al-Mansuris turned to desperation. Behind closed doors, Sheikh Omar summoned his most trusted operatives, not lawyers this time, but men whose loyalty was bound not by contracts, but by fear. Their mission was simple: silence Aaliyah before her story destroyed the family name forever. It began with whispers of a character assassination. Old records were dug up, twisted, and manipulated. Tabloids suddenly ran stories claiming Aaliyah was unstable, looking for attention, even that her pregnancy was a ploy for sympathy. The smear campaign was brutal, designed to strip her of credibility before the courts of public opinion. But when that failed, the tactics escalated. Marcus's apartment was broken into, his files rifled through, his sources intimidated. Anonymous emails warned him to drop the story or end up a headline himself. He knew the stakes, but he also knew retreat wasn't an option. Then came the darkest moment. One late evening, as Aaliyah left a meeting with her lawyer, a black SUV screeched to a halt beside her. Two masked figures lunged out, their intentions clear. But before they could grab her, bystanders intervened, strangers who recognized her face from the interview and refused to let her be swallowed by the shadows. The would-be abductors fled, but the message was undeniable: the Al-Mansuris were willing to risk everything. Ironically, their desperation only backfired. The attempted attack wasn't hidden, it was filmed. Grainy footage of the SUV speeding off hit the internet within hours, igniting global fury. The narrative shifted again. This wasn't just about one act of cruelty. It was about a dynasty willing to cross every line to protect its own. And now, with the world watching closer than ever, the walls around Khalil Al-Mansuri and his family were finally starting to collapse. When the footage of the attempted abduction hit the news, any shred of sympathy for the Al-Mansuri family evaporated. What had started as a scandal was now a full-scale international crisis. Human rights organizations condemned the family, governments faced pressure to investigate their wealth, and activists flooded the streets with chants of "no more immunity for the powerful." For Khalil, the gilded bubble finally burst. His father's lawyers could no longer protect him, his friends in high places refused to answer his calls. Even the hotel that once welcomed him as royalty publicly severed ties, announcing a lifetime ban. Khalil Al-Mansuri, heir to billions, had become a pariah. Then came the legal hammer. With mounting evidence, including Marcus's original recording, Aaliyah's testimony, and the SUV incident, prosecutors filed charges that Khalil couldn't buy his way out of. His mugshot spread across headlines, a sharp contrast to the polished Instagram photos he once flaunted. For the first time, the smirk was gone. But while the world celebrated his arrest, the most powerful image wasn't Khalil in handcuffs, it was Aaliyah, standing outside the courthouse, hand resting on her swollen belly, refusing to be silenced. She didn't just represent a single act of cruelty anymore, she embodied a movement. Workers, women, and ordinary people everywhere saw themselves in her fight against the untouchable elite. Khalil's empire didn't crumble overnight, but the myth of his invincibility did. And in its place rose something stronger, the belief that no dynasty, no matter how wealthy, could forever shield its heirs from the consequences of their actions. The fall of Khalil al-Mansuri wasn't just about a kick in a hotel lobby. It was about the end of an illusion, that money could buy anything, even humanity. In the end, Khalil al-Mansuri's story wasn't just the downfall of a spoiled heir, it was a mirror held up to society. For years, the wealthy walked marble floors untouchable, while workers like Aaliyah bent their backs in silence. One moment of cruelty, captured on camera, cracked that illusion wide open. Aaliyah never asked to be a symbol, yet she became one. Her courage reminded the world that dignity can't be bought, and that sometimes the most powerful resistance comes from those with nothing left to lose. As for Khalil, his billions couldn't erase the stain of public disgrace. His name became shorthand for arrogance, his empire a warning that no fortune is immune to accountability in the digital age. And maybe that's the lasting truth here: power without humanity is fragile. The world is changing. Eyes are watching. Cameras are recording. And the next time someone like Khalil believes they can crush another life without consequence, they might just discover, as he did, that the fall is waiting, swift and unforgiving.